welcome to the Three Owls podcast. Today, as your host, you have Terry and
Haley.
Today we're going to discuss episode 5.
Yeah.
5. Episode 5, and we are going to discuss luck and if luck is really a thing, good luck versus bad luck, the feeling of being lucky.
Creating your own luck.
So some manifestation conversation. I don't have my notes. As you can see, we're at Haley's house today. We have a bit of a tight schedule for March, so we kind of wanted to get it in. It's March 1st, the day that we're recording. As normal, all of our socials, all of our details, all the show notes will be below. We apologize for any terrible lighting if that happens to be an issue today, or any of the other things that we might need
it's just a blank
permission for. That's it. That's all we normally do for introduction, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yes, spin me a yarn.
Yeah, we'll just jump right in.
So I guess this was your if you saw the last one, Terry had a really roundabout way of saying that she wanted to discuss luck. I had absolutely no idea where she was going with it, but here we are. So I guess the first question is why?
Why talk about luck?
What brought it up for you?
Yeah. Super cliche because it's March and it's, the 4-leaf clovers and the St. Paddy's Day and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what sort of spurred it as a potential conversation was a week ago, maybe not a week ago. A few days ago, I was sitting at my dining room table, and my dining room table where I was sitting faces a patio door, and the patio door, when the sky is clear, shows the Rocky Mountains. And I was literally sitting there feeling kind of, I don't want to say sorry for myself, but just sort of feeling a bit run down and tired, and having, gone through what I'd gone through and dealing with some of my husband's things right now. And I had a moment where I was drinking a cup of tea, and I thought, gee, how lucky am I to be sitting here feeling the joy that I feel to be able to experience those Rocky Mountains in that view, and that view never gets old. So I thought, is it luck? Am I lucky to be here? Am I lucky to experience this? Or do I choose the feeling of joy? And do I, does luck actually play a part? That's sort of the thought that went through my head. Wow, I'm so lucky. And then I thought, is it actually luck? Or did I manifest this? Or is this the combination of a bunch of choices that I made to get me to this point in my life?
All of the above, really. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it depends on how you see luck. We were just having a chat about, perspective, because you could have chosen to sat there and not look out the window and have that feeling. You could have sat there to look out the window and been yeah, my life's pretty.
You are editing this one.
My life is...
See how hard it is to try to edit out a bleep out a swear word. Sorry.
My life is pretty miserable right now.
Right.
This is good for my vocabulary. I can think of other words.
Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. Being able to be, also have the presence of mind to be able to consciously see the emotion that you're in and question it. I think that's I think that's a skill, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's not something that everyone necessarily does, and I think there's a lot that you can learn individually, and then being able to make those choices that put you in potentially better positions, or even just to have a more or even to have access to a higher sense of uplifted spirit, which is kind of what you need when you're in the middle of a really rough set of circumstances.
Yeah. I don't know if I read it somewhere or if I heard something the other day about the sort of the human being and its like human nature to think negatively.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's
That's
actually
survival.
yeah. So it's to think the worst is to prepare you for, you know, all that sort of stuff. And like there's not anatomy, physiology to support that.
Yeah.
And to me, and I feel like I'm going to sound a bit arrogant, to me, my sort of human nature is immediately to go to the positive.
Yeah.
Because immediately going to the negative has never served me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I've been practicing it.
I can't help you. I'm like an eternal optimist, and I'm pretty sure it annoys people.
Yeah.
Because I can't turn it off. And I'm unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
But I think like it probably is a practice. And I think you can still have the balance. Like you can still feel the fear, like remember all of the negative things to happen, and like that is still a perspective for learning. You know, because like it's not as if the emotions of like shame and loneliness and fear and all of those lived emotions, they don't just go away when you have a positive outlook. It's just that potentially you've trained yourself, and I've trained myself to have an opportunity to see the positive or the balance, or like, because when you're in the like deep muck of a really, like you're in the pit of grossness, if I didn't have the opportunity to see where the potential learning is from all of that, the grossness lasts for way longer.
Yeah.
And there's no, like, it kind of feels like there's like, I guess the sense of despair starts to creep in, because if you can't see an out or a shining edge, what are you working towards?
Sorry.
Yeah.
When you said the something about despair, I'm immediately in The Princess Bride with the pit of despair. And I'm going to make you try to edit in a little scene or the photo. Sorry.
Okay.
It's very serious, and I hear what you're saying, but that's where I was in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. As you wish.
As you wish. Oh God, such a good movie. Yeah, I think I have trained myself, because I know there were times when I was not woe is me necessarily, but I would have been like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And it does. I mean, it still does suck, but when I first showed up here, I had a little bit of a rant about kind of what's been sucking of late.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe, you know, 10 years ago it would have been a half an hour rant about all the things that are terrible in my life, or all the things that I'm tired of dealing with, or whatever. And now it was like 30 seconds. Okay, I just need 30 seconds. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm done.
Just to shift it. Well, because if it lives inside you, it swells, right? And I am a big believer, which is why I like talk therapy as a part of like an approach to being able to... So close.
I'm so glad you're editing this one.
So close. Is being able to like allow your brain to hear the words that you're saying, so you can like file it away in a way that makes sense, rather than just having it spin through your brain all the time. Yeah.
I think it's really hard for me, and I'd like to know how you feel about it, being an eternal optimist. I don't think I'm an eternal optimist for sure. But when you see other people spiraling in that negativity, how do you not want to fix it? Or because I do, I want to fix it, and I'm like, if you could only see the positive things, you'd feel so much better about life and yourself and this terrible situation. Who cares that the guy just cut you off in traffic? Maybe he's headed to the emergency room. Like, you have no idea what other people's experience is. But this and I see it in you know, friends and some family members doing things and seeing things negatively, and then like, how do you not want to fix it?
I think a big part of it is, for me, has been learning to be a counselor.
Right.
Like that process of, it's not my job to fix you.
Yeah.
Like you have your own agency. You are your own savior. And obviously there's times when you're like deeply engrossed with the joy and happiness of other people. And like I have a lot of conversations with myself in the car. So, and that's that because I can hear myself. And so I would quite often be driving around just talking and saying things, like whether it's like a repetitive statement. Like I know there was one time I was driving around and I'm like, they don't know what they're doing. Don't take this personally. They don't know what they're doing. Don't take this personally. This is not about you. This is about them. It's not about you. It's about them. They're going through their own thing. And like being able to sort of talk myself around allowed me to be calmer, which means I'm making decisions and choices from a more centered space. And also like reminding myself that everyone's got to sort their own pathway out.
Yeah.
Because like you can see people are in the muck, but unless they're extending a hand for you to help them up, like it's not your job to like, you can, I mean, it's not to say that I'm not going to like, I have become with age, I think I've become more balanced in being able to say things. Because imagine like if you told me, oh yeah, I've got like all of these cancers, and I'm like, oh yeah, but like, like, you know,
friends off.
You're still alive, and like, how great is life? And you're like, will you just go away? Instead, I tell you about how much it would suck if you weren't here, but like, you'd be fine because you'd just
wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't have to deal with it. We would have to deal with the mess around.
Yeah. We should have put a trigger warning for mom if mom is watching this. She's not going to be friends with Haley after this.
Yeah. I don't really, it's more, I mean, I can't turn it off, but I think I can temper it in response to other people's, and what I think the short version of that answer is being able to moderate myself to meet people where they're at. Because I've had actual clients in a student environment who see me out in the general space being up here, and if they're down here, they're not sure that they can be heard by me being up here. But when I'm in a different space,
like a counseling mode.
Yeah, I can
put on your counseling hat. Yeah.
Like you can meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And you don't. You know, life is fabulous. Well, sorry about your cancer.
Because I think that's what has sort of, I've had a few conversations with some people since the cancer diagnosis, and I think I mentioned this on here. I don't know if I did or not. But since the initial cervical cancer diagnosis, I have since been diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which is sort of like the cold and flu of cancers. It's like, don't worry about it. It's easily treatable. Yeah. It's really successful to treatment, et cetera, et cetera. But I've heard people say to me, you know, I changed their perspective, or I changed how they saw life, or I was really inspirational and I was so strong. And I was like, that's a lot. That feels like a lot to carry. And I was not doing anything in particular to warrant the praise. I don't even know if it's praise, but the comments to me were a little bit offside. Like I was just being myself, and I was.
But I think you're being raw and honest.
Yeah.
And you're being raw and honest, and you were willing to spend those days, because this is in response to your gratitude posts.
Yeah.
Like you were very upfront with the days that were hard.
Yeah. And
you were also willing to move through and complete it. And so being able to show people that you could still go through a horrendous and horrific process that no one else but you will understand, and be able to find something.
There were days
where,
and mom, you can attest to this if you're watching, there were days I laid in bed and I was laying because I couldn't be vertical in any shape.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, I don't know what I'm going to say today. And we sat there for an hour, and the day that my husband had a diagnosis, which again is not mine to share, my sister-in-law said, "Can you be grateful for oxygen?" And I was like, "That's a good one. I'm going to put that one down." That's great.
Yeah.
Because on that day, I remember it was over an hour where I was thinking to myself, I've got to be grateful for something.
Yeah.
Anything. Give me something. And I couldn't come up with anything. And I can't remember what day that was. I can't remember what I actually said. For anyone that doesn't know who is watching this, when I was going through cancer treatment and I was in the hostel, staying at the hospital in Calgary, I did a gratitude post on a daily basis. And every day I said usually 3 things that I was grateful for. Mm-hmm. And for those people that said, you're inspirational and you're so strong and all that kind of stuff, I don't want to discount how people saw it and what they took from it. And I did that selfishly. Yeah. I think I shared this with you. I did that so that on the days that I felt terrible, I would have to sit there and I would have to find some sort of silver lining.
Yeah.
And it was purely selfish.
But it was a tool, and it was for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That happened to benefit others. And, I found out later, how the heck did we get here? I guess what I was...
Because we're creating our own luck, essentially.
Right. That's kind of what I was, That's what I was, so I'm sitting there thinking, how lucky am I? Yeah. Like I've got 2 cancer diagnoses and I'm sitting at the table thinking, I'm so lucky. Yeah. Am I delusional?
No, I think, maybe. If you are, isn't it a better place to be in than the alternative? And sometimes, potentially, and so.
So what if you are?
You're still functional, so that's fine.
In Newfoundland, I believe it's Newfoundland. I don't think it's a saying that I've heard anywhere else. We would say, fill your boots.
Fill your boots. Irish.
Is that an Irish thing?
Yeah. Oh, so actually, my English housemates used to say that all the time. Fill your boots, yeah. Northern English. I think being, and so, in terms of being around people that have that, the lower, I kind of feel like it's and not in a it is a comparison because you can feel it, but if you're, for me, when I sit in those spaces of anger, frustration, irritability, sadness, all of them are valid and important emotions to be able to experience. What I want for myself is being able to recognize why they exist, and then being able to either this is where I am and I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to wallow and I'm going to make the choice to wallow. Come hell or high water, no one's going to get me out of this. There is no help me out arm. Yeah. It's just, this is where I would like to be and I will choose when this is ending. But I'm not there of someone else's placement. I'm choosing to be there. Yeah. Right? Versus, and then you can choose to be not. Well, and find the pathway out when you're done. Yeah.
And I know, and again, I don't know where I've heard this from, but you have to go through the movements or the motions of, you have to feel the feelings. If you're in a grief space, or if you're in a sadness space, or if you're in an angry space, the more you resist, the more it persists. Yeah. So why are you going to rush yourself through it? Because you'll actually end up slowing yourself down. Yeah, because it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And, there were moments, and again, I'm going to call out my mom, because my mom was there with me when, on that particular day, when my husband called me and shared with me what he was going through, and my mom said, "You can have 5 minutes to cry." Yeah. And I was like, I might need more than that, and you need to go away. You need to leave me alone and just let me be with this, because it is a terrible feeling and I needed to move through it. And as long as it takes is as long as it takes. Yeah. Which, as I'm saying this, I talk about my children being an example for me and to teach me so many things. And my son will say, "Mom, how long does it take to do whatever? How long does it take to make a slice of toast? How long will it be before morning?" And I say to him all the time, it's going to take as long as it takes. Because sometimes the toaster is warmed up and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it takes longer to, if you are thinking about it, it'll take longer for Santa to come or whatever. So it takes as long as it takes. I'm just thinking about from, and I'm going to use air quotes, like the negative emotions. I don't necessarily believe they're negative. Those are the ones that you kind of want to avoid. And it takes as long as it takes to process that.
Yeah. And yes, there are things that you can do to support yourself through those so that you're not feeling like you're adrift in those emotions without some way of being able to come back to yourself.
I also feel like the more you practice going through them, the faster you get at going through them. Like coming here, and I was ready to, tear somebody's head off. I came here, I vented for 30 seconds, and that's all I needed. Whereas, 5 years ago, it would have been an hour-long session.
You don't want to sit in the muck of those, like, you kind of, like, get a bit grinchy.
But it's because I've worked through it however many times before. And you just get better at it or whatever. Not better at it, just more practiced. And sometimes it takes longer.
I just need to pause for a second so I can go check my baby.
Sure.
Is that okay? Baby is alive.
Baby is alive.
Back.
And sleeping. And I've just switched positions because I was just talking about how short I feel in this couch. The depth of the couch is deeper than I'm used to.
Intentional, so that I can sleep on it. Also, I have long femurs, so I like a good supportive depth.
There's 30 seconds of Haley's couch and anatomy. So luck. Do you create your own luck? Do you...
I have a really cute story so my brother got married last year, and when he was younger, his email address, which I won't say onto the internet, but it was luck related. And so his best man at his wedding did this whole speech about how Lachlan is the luckiest man alive. And just reflecting back, like anyone who is into cricket, one of Lachlan's early jobs was working in like the high-end sports bar at the Brisbane cricket grounds, the Gabba, and his best man's story was like, well, of course Lachlan's getting paid to serve alcohol and watch cricket. Like, of course, that's just the job that he would have. Of course he's going to do this. Like, he's the luckiest man alive, etc., etc. And it's just funny to like look at his life, which obviously, I know what's been going on, generally speaking, for the better part of his adult life, and be like, oh yeah, like
he is pretty lucky. And so, but also being as a part of our family, we've often joked that we have like the luck of the Irish and a horseshoe up our ass. You totally do. This family totally does.
And so, like being able to appreciate that, I think, is really funny, and not take it for granted, and not being like arrogant about it. Being able to be like, I think is just, for me, at some point in time, I just adopted the mantra of like the universe is working, like conspiring for me rather than against me.
Which is ironic that you and I are friends, because my family, and for any of my family that's watching, we've always joked that we have the opposite experience. Like the universe is conspiring against us. When all of this sort of went down, we were like, of course I got 2 types of cancer. Of course my husband went through what he's going through. Of course in this process, a bunch of other really terrible things, which I won't share here. But of course all that went down. Of course it did. Because that's what my husband married into. He married into this family. He gets the bad luck now. For anyone who cares to watch this movie, it's called Luck. And have you seen it?
I don't think so.
It's adorable. It's one of my favorite sort of animated films. And essentially it talks about you can't have good luck without bad luck. And just sort of as you were talking about your family being quite lucky and my family being unlucky, it was like, oh, of course, because you and I are sort of the yin and yang. And I mean, I don't actually believe that my family is tainted with any sort of bad luck or anything. It's just kind of funny.
Just a perspective, I think, and being able to, like, there will be something that will come out in the wash of all of this. Like there's already been significant change towards the positive for other areas that aren't necessarily health related. And being able to, I think, witness it and acknowledge it is part of that whole making of own luck process. Like I think too, like it just depends on, like you can kind of cherry pick stories as well. Like there was a lot for all of the things that you can see as being lucky. There's also like all of the background work. It's like you have the Instagram highlight reel versus like all of the things that you do behind to kind of get into those positions. So
there's and I'm gonna butcher it, I think, as above so below, as within so without, as the universe so the soul. You know, so
like this, as above so below, etc., etc.
Is that what it says on there? No, it does not. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
This is my favorite thing, Magic of Eye journals. I've been with them since it was a Kickstarter, and it's about like planets and energies, movements, etc. Love it. Anyway, continue.
And I'm like, I'm not as witchy as you might be, but yeah, you know, there's a whole, you know, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Is that Newton's second law?
Probably.
Now you're gonna have to find it out and put it in the show notes below because you're doing the editing. I'm gonna keep reminding her of that. Yeah, I think, and anyway, the point of talking about that movie was that it's a really cute representation of what I think we're talking about. And you can't have good days without bad days because you don't really have anything to compare it to. Otherwise, you're just kind of going.
Yeah, well, like imagine like if you were just always up. A, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And B, there's no, like, if like base level is here and you're just operating up here all the time, you don't necessarily know that this exists because if you don't have any dips.
Yeah. And vice versa. If you're always down, you don't ever allow yourself to go above the middle line.
Which I think is like, you know, a lot of people with that whole foreboding joy, etc., being able to surrender to the emotions. Like, okay, like if this is terrible, like the flip side of that is that there's going to be something phenomenal. And being able to, I think actually, I mean, we have to have at least one Brené Brown reference per.
I thought we were going to get away with it. No.
I think it was in the Atlas of the Heart. So that's one of the ones I'm listening to at the moment. And she talks about interviewing a gentleman who, you know, was always preparing for the worst, so that nothing surprised him.
Right.
And then his wife passed away, and then he's just like, you know, you can prepare for the worst the whole time, but it doesn't actually give you anything.
It doesn't actually prepare you.
It doesn't change anything. It's still like, you still have to go through everything. And now, he's like, I'm so much more present in what it is that I'm doing every day, and I get the emotional, like the positive emotions out of it, and she's not around to share it with.
Right.
Like, so it's almost like cutting yourself off at the knees because you've
now wasted, so to speak, that time
like
that you could have been.
Massive learning. Yeah. And being able to, that's what I love about this sort of stuff, is being able to learn from other people's processes. And I think that that's part of why your gratitude process was so inspirational and thought-provoking for people, because it's just like, if she can do it, because like you're a regular human, there's nothing like, I mean,
celestial.
Like, well, there's like, you're a regular being, like you have 2 kids, you have a husband, you have a house, like you go to work every day, you put your pants on, etc. Like there's people relate to you as a peer rather than like whoever. Right? So,
rather than Brené Brown. Like I'm not like I'm not studied, I'm not I'm just a regular human.
And so your sharing of gratitude, I can see why people take strength and solace in that, because it's just like, oh, like I can see myself in you.
Right.
And so like if she can do that, like maybe I can face the hard stuff too. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thought process on that.
So I know when we talked a little bit, we'd sort of mentioned luck, that we were going to talk about it, and then you had said that you wanted to talk a bit about kind of manifesting and some of the sort of where we are in time and space with relation to the maiden and the mother.
So I just think it's interesting, particularly because, so prior to being in Calgary, I lived in Byron Bay for a couple of years beforehand, and then before that was Brisbane. So for me, like I recognized probably the third time around that there's something energetically holding about Brisbane as a city for me. Like it's very similar to Calgary in how I feel at home.
It actually it feels similar to me too, but it also looks like the way the river, like it's similar
it's
looking.
City. Yeah, they're about the same sort of size. Yeah. They're kind of like a little bit slower than like a Toronto or a Sydney or a Melbourne.
Yes.
And so like for me, I recognized the third time I lived there as an adult that it tends to be like the launching point, and always eventually I would always come back to a similar suburb. So like there was the suburb that I moved into after like leaving college for university and lived there for 2 years, then went overseas. I came back, same sort of neighborhood, like about 5 streets over, lived there. Then I'm like kind of like, it's like a resting space where I regather myself before like launching into like the next chapter of whatever it is.
It's like your pause button.
Yeah.
Yeah, like gather myself.
Yeah.
Go off.
Find a share house or whatever. Find a job. Like regroup, and then be like, okay, well, what do I want to create next? And so one day I was just talking with a girlfriend. We were rock climbing about how I wanted to move to Byron, just something different. And then about a year later, I did. There was a job waiting for me, so I just sort of, and it's very rare to actually arrive in Byron Bay without like with actual employment. Usually people like gravitate there and then try and find something. So it was kind of a unique situation from the get-go. And I had a dog, and finding a house generally is pretty hard, but finding a house that allows pets is even harder. So everything kind of fell into place for me. And then there's actually a chick called Jordanna Levin, which I didn't like. She's got a couple of books out. And I was listening to this through the library, and then I bought it because it's, supportive of people doing their things. And I think she's from Sydney originally, but was living in Byron. And I just really liked it because it's got like little exercises and stuff. And I'm all about self-reflection, you may have picked up on. But like it just does little things like randomly. Exercise 18 is like accepting compliments, like being able to like say thank you and have good things accepted into your life. And then like peaceful breathing. And she sort of put like a little bit of a like a formula together for like manifesting, which I mean, take it for what you will, but between like being able to reflect on where I am, who I am, and what it is that I wanted, I was able to like take those things, and also using people as mirrors. Like I had a very upfront conversation with one of my guy friends about like my dating life, and in that moment I shifted something, and then a couple of weeks later I like matched with Ian on Tinder, and here we are. Like, and being able
Side note, you matched with him, he was in Calgary, you were in Australia.
Yeah.
Like
at the start of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, like the universe was putting that into, that is just,
and also
that story itself is incredible.
Yeah, and it's just more because I mean, like anyone who's ever been on Tinder, it's pretty much like instinctual. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I also like to read the bios, and Ian has a very specific hairstyle. And I just remember, like, I remember him popping up on my phone as we were sitting in our lounge rooms, flirting with boys all over the planet, because that's all you did at the start of COVID. And just like seeing this person and just instantly having like a different feeling about him, and being like, this person knows who they are because like look at that haircut. Like, he knows who he is.
Yeah.
And then being able to have like a friendship and then a relationship, and then obviously the culmination of everything here. So yeah, I think being able to, but like that was 18 months at least of just him being in my life without actually being in my life in a physical way, where like I was so sure on him because I knew myself for what it is that I wanted and how we matched. And I used all of the tools at my disposal to be able to keep myself grounded in a way that allowed it to continue without whatever else, like without running into barriers that are natural for people that have never met each other and live on the other side of the planet.
During a global pandemic.
So being able to like, yeah. And I think a big part of that is the ability to self-soothe, which I think is also kind of comes back to what we were saying before about being able to make choices from a place that is like responsive rather than reactive. And then that kind of feeds into that process of luck. And also like, you know, I think I'll find it. Her equation is something like faith, something. Anyway, I'll figure it out.
While you look for that, I'll tell my quick story about how I manifested my husband.
Do it.
So I had been training a lot. I was running a fair bit. And I had friends of mine say to me, you barely have time for your friends. How are you ever going to find a guy? Like if you want to get married and have kids, like you got to start to work toward it. And so one night I sat down and I grabbed a pen. It happened to be a red pen, very obtuse, and a scrap of paper or like an old receipt or something. And I just wrote down the things that I wanted in a partner. And literally, if you were to look at this list and put them next to my husband, they are identical. Like, you know, he's his own person, which now during my relationship, my husband doesn't cut his hair when I want him to cut his hair, like for our wedding. And then I get frustrated about it, but it's exactly what I wrote. It's exactly what I wrote on that piece of paper. And I still have it somewhere. But yeah, I just sat down one day, wrote out my bullet points of what I wanted a perfect partner to be. And then he just showed up. I mean, he didn't just show up. We met. And then, you know, when we met, I said, I think might have even said to you, he's a really nice guy. Like, I think we could be really good friends. And then the story goes, he put his hand on my back during a date and I got butterflies and I was like, oh, well, look at that. I guess I have feelings for this guy. Oh, well, it was fun while it lasted. The friendship was fun while it lasted. And here we are over 10 years later and, you know, lifting each other up through the toughest parts of our lives. So you really need a really good friend during that time.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know, that's the basis of Ian and my relationship as well.
Yeah.
Like we were pen pals for such a long time before anything ever really happened. And I think too, being able to kind of like the self-soothing part is like, because realistically, when you have a partner, sometimes all you want to do is be able to like make your problems their problems, which is just an unfortunate part of humanity, I guess.
Yeah.
But when you're on the other side of the planet and the other person like literally doesn't have to take any of your nonsense because they don't have to pick up the phone. I just remember standing in the kitchen and it was 6 o'clock at night in like local time and it was 2 a.m. here roughly. And all I wanted to do was have a fight with him because I'm just like, why are you not awake? Because he has to be up for work in like 3.5 hours. And it's just being able to, like, all of my stuff was my stuff and all of his stuff was his stuff. And we had to individually learn how to deal with our stuff and then come together to either share it or like inform the other of like what's happening in your life. But that at no point in time was either person responsible for how we were in the day because we were just together to share joy essentially and like, you know, talk about life stuff and all the rest of it. But like he was the best part of my day for such a long time and vice versa because we didn't have to, because we had the process of learning how to not dump on each other. Yeah.
And when you do, because maybe you don't, but when I do, you know, I come home and from work and I dump on my husband about something or I dump on him about the roads were terrible or I hate driving in the city or whatever. He doesn't have to take it on. And still, like, when I was going through my treatments and I was in the city and he was taking care of the kids, same thing. Like, I had my stuff. I had to go focus on my stuff, and he was focusing on his stuff. He was making sure the kids were cared for, and he was doing what he had to do. And we still came together, and I would just like, can I just offload for a minute? So I would offload for a second.
Yeah.
I don't need you to do anything.
Yeah.
I just need you to hear me out. And then he would say, oh, yeah, that sucks. And then he would tell me his thing that he had to, yeah, that does suck.
Yeah.
And like, I will help you carry that load if you want me to.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's, I just needed to offload it for a second. And but there's no expectation that the other one does it for you. Or
I just get really cranky and then I have to apologize because I'm like, I haven't lived with someone ever like this.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's still, and obviously like you throw a baby and sleep deprivation and -40 into the mix, and it's, I'm not someone that's necessarily in the house all the time. So I do get like a little bit stir crazy, and sometimes I just get really irritable because I'm human.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I just have to apologize because I'm sorry, I'm cranky today. It's not that, it's not nothing to do with you. It's just like, I'm moving through the process of being cranky and I just want to smash the plates on the floor. But I'm an adult, and also I know I'm going to have to clean it up.
Yeah.
My mess. So I'm not going to do that.
I could throw a temper tantrum, but is it worth it? That whole executive functioning brain kicks in and you make better choices, which is part of being an adult. And sometimes not. Sometimes you make poor choices.
I just want to be like Jack and throw my bottle on the floor. Sometimes be like, no. But then I know I'm going to have to clean up all of the mess that I've just made. So I wish that fairy would come back. I don't know where she went.
Is that your mom?
I don't know. I feel like she existed at some point, but I don't actually have any recollection of actual details. Maybe I've just blanked out having to do anything that I didn't want to do.
Yeah, so I think ultimately we've landed on, there's not really a such thing as luck necessarily, like in the literal, like you just sort of give it up to the, and it's delivered to you. Like there's a...
Also, to just go back to when referencing a different human in their book, so Jordanna Levin. So I think this is the second of 3 or 4 books. Anyway, I'll link her below. She's also got a sweet little podcast about like the moon and astrology and stuff. So her manifestation equation, which I'll just read the highlights of. So she's got the law of attraction, which if you're familiar with any of like the Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks kind of stuff, is sort of falls into that space. Kind of the Hay House stuff. I think Gabrielle Bernstein also sort of follows that.
Is that The Secret?
Yeah, kind of that kind of vibe, like call it in type thing.
Yeah.
Law of vibration. So like everything in the universe vibrates on its own frequency. Similar things of similar frequency are drawn together. So that's why I think sometimes, like if you want to sit in a pit of despair, like things aren't necessarily going to flow your way of a positive nature.
Pit of despair. If you have not seen The Princess Bride, stop this podcast, go watch The Princess Bride, and you know what we're talking about.
Oh dear. The law of action. You must do things and perform the actions necessary to achieve what it is that you're setting out to do. And the law of rhythm. So all energy in the universe is like a pendulum. It ebbs and flows, waxes and wanes, rises and falls, grows and decays. Which kind of like links then into the next part, which I guess would be part 2 of the March process, which is like the equinox for spring in the Northern Hemisphere, is happening on March 20th. So like if you think about the cycle, so we're coming into like spring. So in Calgary specifically, I love spring. It's like there's lilacs and the birds are back in full force.
And you can have some really warm days.
Yeah, the days are lovely. The sky is really clear. I mean, the sky is usually clear unless it's cloudy, but like it's just a different type of crispness.
Everything smells. I describe it. I don't know if you guys have this same feeling. Probably not. But the day that you ask your dad to take your bike out, like that day is when it tips. You probably don't.
I'm just like the day It's like, I think for like the southern hemisphere, particularly like along the equator area, like, I'm just thinking of like the day when it doesn't burn to get into the car, like when your thighs aren't on fire from sitting in the car seat, and you don't have to like test the handle of your car seat belt, like the metal of your car seat belt, see if you're going to get burnt by holding it. Then you know,
very different perspectives.
Probably getting into autumn.
Yeah. Very different perspective. Never in my life in Canada have I ever tested the seatbelt to see if it was too hot. But I have asked my dad, can we get my bike out, because it was been put away all winter. And that day when, you know, everything's wet, there's still snow on the ground, but not so much snow that you're going to come home covered in mud. But you're probably going to be covered in a little bit of mud. Your bike's going to be dirty, but you're like, Dad, please, can we get my bike out today? That's a day. That is, and I tell you, all the Canadians, you tell me down below, all of the Canadians that watch this, that day exists. We all know what we're talking about. And none of us have ever tested the seatbelt to see if it's too hot. That's reserved for the Southern Hemisphere peeps.
It's just, like you forget the screen thing that you need to put in your windshield, because otherwise, like, you can't hold the steering wheel because it's so hot. It's just been like blazing in the sun. Anyway.
I wanted to say a quote, which I will say, I won't tell you who it's specifically from. He's from my hometown. He was a teacher in my high school. And in 1997, when I graduated high school, I graduated from a different high school, but anyway, the short version of the story was I was attending the high school graduation that I would have graduated from had I stayed in that town. But anyway, I was there as an attendee, not as a graduate. The speech that he gave at this graduation to toast the students, so keep in mind, this is 1997, and I've never forgotten it. And he said, and I'm going to obviously paraphrase, but something to the effect of, what I won't do is wish you luck, because luck didn't get you here where you are today, and luck won't get you anywhere from here. What will get you somewhere in life is hard work, determination, and perseverance. And I've never forgotten that. That is what gets you through. Like, luck doesn't get you a high school diploma. Luck doesn't get you anything, but your perspective does, and your willingness to do hard work and the hard things and have hard conversations
and show up. Yeah. And I think that's it. Like, there's a fear, and you don't necessarily have to show up. Like, you can live a life without ever really having to be vulnerable and put yourself in positions that are difficult. And I'm sure that those lives are perfectly fine. Yeah. But I don't want a life that's perfectly fine.
No, I like the ebbs and flows. I like the highs and lows. I mean, I prefer the highs to the lows. But we're back to, I think you need to have the lows in order to feel how high the highs can be. Yeah. And you have to, that foreboding joy, we're back to Brené. Yeah. You have to also allow the highs to be high. Like, let yourself feel the ridiculous joy that you see when you look your child in the face.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go.
That's why I said that, because I heard him. Are we going to pause again?
You can just finish it up if you like.
Like, start with my best part of my best day.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right, I'm going to go without her. She's going to get to watch this because she's doing the editing. So we're going to sort of tidy up the luck conversation, and we're not going to wish you luck. We're going to wish you lots of hard work, perseverance, positive outlook, and living through the difficult times when you have to do that too. So my best part of my best day, I would say, other than what's to come, because I do have some really exciting things coming up for today, where I'm going to go meet some of my coworkers that I haven't seen in ages, and I have some medical stuff going on today, so I'm going to go do that. But I think my best part of my best day today, I've just like randomly talked for I don't know how many minutes, and I've gotten nowhere. Not that I've had a terrible day, but like nothing's really like jumped out at me.
Well, it's only halfway through too.
I know, that's what I said. Like, I've got a few things coming that I'm pretty excited about, but honestly, maybe my cup of tea. I had a cup of tea and a muffin this morning. I have to fast for some of my medical stuff, and I really enjoyed that cup of tea.
See? And I think part of it too, like simple things.
Yeah.
Being able to love simple things.
So what was your best part of your best day?
Best part of my best day. I don't know. So we've been, I think I mentioned last time, sleep training, and just having Jack be less upset about not being around us when he's falling asleep, or just like finding him in weird positions when he does fall asleep, and then when I actually go and get him to wake up for the day, him giving me the big smile with his one little tooth, just the one tooth.
So that's the best feeling when you go in and they're like, oh, you came back.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't know.
Hey,
Bless them.
we just want you to have a good sleep. Yes. So I'd say that's my best part of my best day. I just, like, I know that I said before about, you know, this is the most inside I've ever been in my life, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we get to hang out all the time.
I show my kids videos of them as as babies, and they'll say, "Is that me, or is that me, or is that somebody else, or is that my brother, or is that whatever?" And they can't believe that they were ever that small. Like, you're telling me, like, you used to fit in my arm, and now you're, up to my chin. The 5-year-old is getting very big and very tall and is always hungry. I said to him yesterday, dude, wait till you're a teenager and I have to start charging you grocery bills.
He's gonna eat a lot of white bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just goes straight into their feet, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's like foundation, like soil. White bread is soil for growing teenage boys. It's where all of the growing starts and then just comes up.
Yeah.
That'll be you. Yeah. Yeah. I think we did right.
Yeah, me too. Do we have an outro? Do we want to talk about episode 6?
Episode 6 will be
the second half.
So maybe getting into more of like the cyclical stuff with like spring, planting seeds, etc. What it is. Because I think like if you're going to create your own luck, you may as well be in charge of whatever it is that you want to create, right? And what better time than the spring equinox?
And you said was March 20th. So ideally, because we're going to release this video. We're going to release this video, like around the 15th? And then
we can release it, if I get time to edit it, it could go out on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking, do you want to like line up the other one to be around the 20th to release it? So we could do this one early and then that one early and then...
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So keep your eyes on this channel and we'll just make our minds up when we feel like it.
Spontaneous planning.
Which is not what the internet says, not to do that. It says to have a regular schedule.
But the internet isn't dealing with our lives.
I know. I know. And the internet is not me and being rigid and the opposite of rigid.
I do like a bit of structure because it gives me something to buck against.
I don't think we need any other description of our friendship at all. Like, that is it right there in a nutshell.
All right. I'm going to go change a bum. Enjoy your day.
Thanks for everybody for joining us. Like, if you're a new subscriber, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and click the little notification icon. Thanks for all the returning viewers. Yeah, just thanks for joining us. Yeah. Like Haley said in the last one, we really enjoy doing this, and we really appreciate you coming along for the ride to listen to us ramble.
I mean, an educational ramble.
Right.
Hopefully.
That's right.
Okay. Bye.
We'll talk soon.